Singh, Engagement. Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Ashish Singh, Engagement Director at GEOSTRATA, live from Bharat Mandapam in Pragati Maidan, New Delhi. Today is a big and momentous day, especially given the G20 Leaders Summit that is ongoing. And today we saw the emergence of a consensus document called the New Delhi Leaders Declaration. And the very reason why it leaves a historic legacy in the very chapter of international cooperation multilateralism is because it is an achievement in arriving at a consensus on issues and frameworks on which there was no consensus, and on issues where the international community was evading a consensus, right? Namely, as we will discuss very soon. Uh, so, of course, it has been a great honor and pleasure for us to be here and interact with world leaders, with governments, with diplomats, with policymakers, with press, etc., and also with international delegates. And I would then pass on the floor to Sumit Desai from the GeoStrata, and then maybe we would like to sort of discuss today's day and then go forward from there for the enrichment of our audience. So, Sumit, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for inviting me, and congratulations on reaching Bharat Mandapam. It's a big day, and you guys have done a fantabulous job on the live from the ground. So I think let's begin the conversation. First of all, I would like to know the ground voice that you might be hearing from live from Bharat Mandapam since last 2 days.
Hmm. Could you repeat the question?
Can you share with our viewers why? Can you share with our viewers your views live from the ground
Okay.
at
With regards to the view,
the diplomatic view that is going around?
okay, okay. Just be a little loud, okay? I think there's some disturbance in the background in my end. With regards to the diplomatic view, which is a very pertinent question, Sumit, it is one of celebration and jubilation. And I'm not even kidding, especially given that this is India. It has historically been a melting pot of not only cultures but of consensus, right? We have seen the Bombay consensus, and today I'm very proud to sort of announce to the youth constituencies worldwide that this is today the birth of a new Delhi consensus, because we have agreed on issues from pertaining to women-led development to digital public infrastructure to even a consensus on the Ukraine war, basically, which is, of course, monumental, given that you are reconciling all of these issues with the single most issue which has been plaguing Western media since the last 2 years, right? And coming to a consensus on that with all parties and more than 80 paragraphs and so many lines and so many various issues is a feat in itself. And that is something with 250 plus meetings across India, which has been by far by any margin, the highest and the most ambitious of any presidency of the G20 over the last few years. That itself, speaks to you about the diplomatic outlook that we are seeing here. It is the birth of the New Delhi consensus, as well as it is a moment of celebration and a moment of truth, given the power of the Indian, of the Bharatiya brand, the convening power of the Bharatiya brand, bringing all of these different factions and parties together, and then sort of rallying all of them together under the common flag of one earth, one family, one future. I think that is something great, and that is a very refreshing update, or very refreshing gust of wind, I would like to say, in very poetic terms, to the international scene that we have here, live from Bharat Mandapam Summit. Thanks.
So, hearing from you, I can conclude that there is a renewed hope in globalization because it was fragmenting, right? So, going by all the consensus that have been reached in different domains, would you like to say that multilateralism has got a new life in today's world?
Exactly. That's another very pertinent question, Sumit, with regards to globalization. And we have been seeing, waves of deglobalization over the last few years, especially after the pandemic. How that tide changes in New Delhi is the birth of a lot of frameworks here, especially given, let's say, the global green financing framework, like the global sustainable development pact that has been signed in the New Delhi declaration today, And then going forward, we are looking at a very multilateral outlook to global trade. The declaration openly calls for full endorsement and implementation of WTO's open free trade principles without any discrimination of based on the nation or something, or any discriminatory policies. And then after the onslaught of the Ukraine war, and we saw a lot of choking of global supply chains, especially in terms of food and wheat and foodstuffs, for which had a great negative impact on the global south. How that has been, how the global south, how the G20 community together has come to resolve that deadlock is by reaffirming the Black Sea deal. In a way, I mean, the consensus explicitly talks about it. The Black Sea deal, which
Yes.
needs to be reinvoked, which needs to be implemented vigorously. Then, of course, WTO principles and a multilateral framework where these issues are sort of negotiated and talked out, and we have these sustainable. When I say sustainable,
Development
not
goal.
only from a green perspective, but also from the very sustainability of these supply chains from political or geopolitical roadblocks or setbacks. So in these respects, the Indian presidency has been very, very successful in sending a signal out to the world that you cannot just think that globalization is over. It is actually the start of a new globalization powered by the power of tech, powered by a digital public infrastructure where the delivery of public goods, of trade, of services must become even more equitable, must be scaled up to a level never seen before. This is a major technical aspect of the New Delhi consensus, which also needs to be talked about from a globalization perspective. So, yeah.
So you mentioned about supply chain. Uh, I've gone through the declaration. There is a paragraph which explicitly states that the G20 members adopt a G20 generic framework for mapping global value chains so that they can de-risk their supply chains and value chains. There is another mention about food security, nutrition, with regards to the global south. Uh, India has been, very efficient in bringing these issues directly to the global south. How do you sense the hope from the global south from Bharat Mandapam?
Mhm. With regards to environmental development at the end.
Everything, including the invitation tender to the African Union.
Mhm. So a major part of the Delhi Declaration that we have seen today is addressed, is sort of it seeks to be the voice of the global south in a way, it's made very explicit in, let's say, the call for increasing the base level of annual financing of $100 billion towards climate financing, right? It calls to increase that, and with 100 billion as just the threshold, it calls to effectively implement the Sharm el Sheikh adaptation agenda, or the Glasgow agenda, right, or the Addis Ababa agenda on sustainable finance and sustainable trade and climate policies. These are issues of core concern to the global south. It talks about the common framework, and it not only talks about it, but it actually vigorously calls for the implementation and the expansion of the clauses or the coverage or the scope of the common framework, so that more debt can be lent to these global south countries, which have suffered tremendously after the pandemic, then climate change. I mean, the talk of the town here is adaptation. It's about acknowledging the reality of climate change, and then going forward from there and making funds available from a CFBR perspective, right? Common but differentiated responsibilities. It reaffirms that. It reaffirms COP27. It reaffirms that these principles need to be tracked, and they need to be implemented, and then they need to be made even more ambitious running up to COP28 in UAE in Dubai in December this year. So these are some ways, and of course the Green Financing Pact and Sustainable Development commitments that again have been reaffirmed in this summit. Without any particularities attached, without any strings attached, and of course beyond that, also about increasing flows to the global south. It recognizes, for example, that it welcomes a report that was commissioned by the government of India under the G20 presidency. It recognizes that at least $4 trillion US of um, money or investments
Yes.
is required to enable the entire world to impel it towards a just transition, right? So these are issues that have been recognized, and based on this, building upon this, the document also talks about the loss and damage framework, which was talked about, which was sort of the creation or the birth, we saw its birth in COP27.
Of
It talks,
27 years.
so there's this entire transition committee that has been constituted under the loss and damage framework. Indian presidency has acknowledged this, and it has committed to supporting the transition committee in all ways possible to ensure that the funds which the global south deserves historically have are made available to the global south as soon as possible. So, there are a lot of rays and hopes which the Indian presidency has been managed to achieve and fulfill. And of course, how could we miss this? The entry of the African Union into the G20, and
55 countries.
exactly, this is the delivery of Prime Minister Modi's promise that no global south voice will be left alone, right? There was only one country in the G20 so far, which is South Africa, right, which is also a member of BRICS. But where is the South African recommendation? I mean, they are the future of tomorrow, and we cannot leave one world while we cannot talk about one world while forgetting about one future. And a major pillar of that future is Africa, is the African Union, and today the incorporation of African Union and the consummation of Prime Minister Modi's promise to the African Union president is a precedent for the international community that what is the power of multilateralism. And of course, Indian action has ensured that African Union will always, every year, summit after summit, find a voice in the international climate finance negotiations, international developmental negotiations, health negotiations, all of it. And that is the promise of India, which has been delivered in the New Delhi consensus here in New Delhi today, Sumit.
So you emphasized on the point of inclusive growth when it comes to environment, technology, everything. The fact that African Union countries will be able to get representation at G20 every year. My question to you is regarding environment. I've gone through the declaration. I've seen that environment has been covered comprehensively. You have things on livelihoods, sustainability, the UN action plan. Then there are provisions for climate 5. There are provisions for biodiversity. It is a very comprehensive outlook on how to deal with the environment. There is also mention about circular economy. So regarding all this, I would like to know the business environment at G20 right now. Are they ready to adapt to a changing geo-economic situation that is transitioning towards, renewable energy?
Very, very pertinent question. The Global Biofuels Alliance, which has been championed by India, was established formally today. Okay, and it calls upon for changing the petroleum concentrations or compositions in ways which are more sustainable than existing concentrations, and extracting energy from biofuels in a way which is very, very sustainable as compared to present practices, right, which are very fuel intensive, carbon intensive. So that is one plank of environmental feat that Indian presidency has achieved, and this is the consummation, or let's say the convergence of scientific prowess or scientific capacity building or scientific technologies that India has championed and developed over the years. And this is basically a gift of India to the world, not only to global south, but it's a step towards impelling all of the latest technological innovations that science has developed, that science wants to give to the world, and it has all been channelized into this declaration, which has not been done ever before. Global Biofuels Alliance is the talk of the town when we talk about environmental innovations and all, and it is a mixing of policy and science and advocacy and finance, which has found its way into the document of the world's 20 largest economies. But that's not all. We also have today also reaffirmed the International Solar Alliance, where we are again going to develop these solar panels and solar capacity building and interconnected grids, and reducing transmission delays or transmission related emissions, all of that. Then we also, I guess, have the Chennai principles of blue economy, right? That has also found its place after enormous consultations by by a lot of meetings within the Indian presidency. So that has also been incorporated. Then in terms of the business environment, we have also seen the declaration or the establishment of the recognition rather of the Jaipur call for MSME finance or something. Roughly what it is, right? So that is also there. That basically there is a recognition or a kindling that you need to also talk about these small farmers or small businessmen within the overarching G20 scenario or G20 framework, right? So these also need to be brought into the discourse, and that has also been sought to be done. So these are a lot of
Sustainable agriculture.
ways.
Yes. So now my next question will be regarding the line on Ukraine. We have seen that Sherpas have been, negotiating harder in the last previous couple of days to build consensus over this one paragraph on Ukraine. And what we effectively have is the continuation of Bali Declaration plus a reaffirmation of national positions and the respect for UN Charter included. And one important clause that was included was you cannot practice nuclear brinkmanship, and it is not entertain it will not be entertained by the international community. So this one clause, have you met any Chinese or Russian officials? Because we have been getting reports that they were blocking this paragraph. So how do you think India managed to build consensus on this one paragraph?
So with regards to that question, of course, at the end there was a huge consensus, right? And with regards to us meeting Chinese or Russian officials, we met a lot of officials here. Let me tell you, these are all very significant players in the multilateral fora. And India or the Indian presidency or G20 in general cannot do without the consensus of these two very kind of giant countries, right? They are important players, and they have their own merits, and they bring their own weight to the international fora. Of course, Ukraine is not the only talk of the town. It has been a 2 years old issue, and G20 is of course not the appropriate forum to deal with such geopolitical issues in as much as, but it can only be dealt with in as much as the economic sort of spirals of the issue can be considered, like wheat or for food grain, etc. But with regards to nuclear deterrence and all of that, as well as there has been clear again an affirmation that this is not an era of war. It has said that any country which tries to sabotage the political independence, not with reference to any country that you named, but in general, right? Any country which tries to sabotage the political independence or territorial integrity of any country is inadmissible. Inadmissible is the word. There cannot be any stronger word than this in a multilateral document summit. So I think that is a great achievement of the Indian presidency. And in regards to not some countries not agreeing to that, it was Prime Minister Modi who was sorting out the negotiations. How could one not agree to that, right? It's India, it's our convening power. And it is, I think the credit goes to the Sherpa, to Prime Minister Modi, of course, his able leadership, and the government of India, the team India, and the various factions of the government that have worked together in making all of this possible. So I think it's not about some countries not acknowledging or not trying to come to a consensus. It was about countries being, lured into a consensus which leaves behind a legacy of everlasting cooperation and of humanity and future.
Yeah. A couple of questions regarding technology. Technology has been a main discussing point at the G20 this year. There have been paragraphs on crypto, regulation of crypto, on AI, responsibly good and for all, and CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. In addition to how India has, exhibited the Digital India initiative, the exhibition at the Bharat Mandapam. How do you think the countries are agreeing with the way India wants, to shape the technological rules?
So the last part about our question was about India wants to frame the technological rules and how that is being received. Is that what you asked?
India is giving a direction to how the technological rules are framed.
Okay. So Sumit, I think in my opinion, it was not so much about India trying to even caring about giving a direction to how technological rules are being framed. It was more about how can the world get benefited, or how can humanity or collective good be achieved through the various formidable technological innovations that India has sort of developed over the last few years and demonstrated by scaling it up to 1.4 billion people of India, right? Aadhaar system, India's target, these are all fully saturated in India today. UPI, going towards a cashless economy where even the last mile consumer, relies last mile citizen can pay through their mobile, or just by scanning a QR code, or the various other missions. For example, the interoperability of India's tech of the codes, and how they can be like the Kisan credit scheme of the RBI, and how you can just sit in your home, enter your Aadhaar number, your PAN number, etc., and all the data, including your name, etc., will be automatically fetched by RBI and your banks, and you will get to know how much loan you're eligible for, and you'll get the money in your
Digital public infrastructure.
digital
Even that,
public infrastructure. Exactly.
yes.
And these are issues, these are capacities, I would say. Capacities is the right word, digital capacities, which India has, sort of Indian presidency sort of
Mastered.
affirmed, and it is agreed, not agreed, but rather, enthusiastically offered to the world as a gift, as a technological innovation, right? And I think this is something which is very critical to the future of the world and how future of world governance, basically, because with increasing complexities of environment, or various regulations, you sort of need to make sure that your public goods are being delivered to the last mile citizens, right? And that is a step in the right direction. Sort of trying to learn from India, and India trying to build capacity across the world in areas where it has mastered. That's one. Regarding your CFBR, or I mean, central bank digital currencies, or crypto assets, a very major development has been that the crypto assets and its legitimate existence has been acknowledged in the document. Now, what will the what will be the regulatory outlook of that is a matter of consultations, as has been acknowledged in the document. Now, how will those consultations take place? The International Monetary Fund and the Financial Stability Board have already, released documents, and those are to be reviewed in Marrakesh after, of course, there was a major earthquake very close to Morocco today, very close to Marrakesh in Morocco today, and of course, we sort of in GEOSTRATA we do offer and proffer our heartfelt condolences to the people of Morocco, and of course, as also Prime Minister Modi and uh, Minister Nirmala Sitharaman also acknowledged today. And with regards to that, there is going to be another review of crypto assets. And in addition to that, regarding central banking digital currencies, of course, there was a working group task forces on that. And there have been some sort of convergences. Of course, this is a matter of, each country needs to develop its regulations at its own pace when it comes to central bank digital currencies, right? But India's central banking system, like how you can just, use these currencies and just transfer them offline in an online format, but not without the internet also. This was in display in the RBI's pavilion yesterday in the Bharat Mandapam. So that has also been sort of tried to be delivered to the international scene. And we will see more consensus on these as India tries to engage with the Troika.
Okay. One last question from my side. There have been mentions about international taxation, terror financing, and money laundering
Hmm.
with regards to corruption, because
Yeah,
anti-corruption was a working group.
yeah.
So I would like to know your views on this and how do you read this situation?
Right. So there was a reiteration of, not reiteration, but rather a major statement, I would say, on seizing or plugging all attempts to stop international bribery or to stop international money laundering. It welcomes and tries to, strengthen the fangs of international anti-corruption bodies, for example, the Financial Action Task Force, right, or the International Money Laundering Coalition, and various frameworks. So these are also issues which have been dealt with adequately in the framework. And sort of the major thrust of this very particular paragraph on the international anti-money laundering frameworks or attempts is that the G20, by affirming these and asking to reaffirm or sort of, to re-strengthen these, gives them a new fang, gives them a new legitimacy, right? So that becomes very, very, very important.
Uh, I think that will be all for this
What I
session.
missed, Sumedh, was also that India has also in the climate part. I asked this question to Foreign Affairs Minister Jaishankar in the press conference today, and
Yeah.
what we have got to know is we have also gone very, very hard on green economy, right? Not green economy, but even more than that, green hydrogen technologies. These are also
Mm.
very new emerging technologies in the in the mitigation sphere of things, which also have been developed by India, which also have been scaled up.
Diversification.
Yes, which have been scaled up by India. So,
Mm.
in addition to the biofuels alliance, this is also a major development, which you will see more of in the coming summits or in the coming frameworks, especially going down in COP28. But of course, this is a step in the right direction, which has been initiated under the New Delhi Consensus, as the GEOSTRATA would like to call it.
Uh, One last question before we wrap it up. What do you expect tomorrow? A lot of bilaterals, uh, What else? There's, I guess, one session on one future, right? For tomorrow.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you expect for tomorrow?
Well, in regards to what else, if I was to, do a 1 second reflection of what was today, it is unbeatable, and it is something which has never happened before. Like, in a few hours, you achieve consensus on such a big document, and you have the New Delhi Declaration. It's huge in itself. I think the leaders need to be afforded a space to sort of interact and then discuss the way forward in one future. And I think that will take the entire day of tomorrow, because it's very important to discuss, okay, now we have achieved this consensus. What is the way forward? What will Brazil do, and how can India help them? How can Indonesia help them? How can the upcoming presidencies help? Right. So it's now tomorrow will be more about implementation, and it will be more about getting the dollar out, or getting these alliances together, not alliances, but getting these capacities together. And I think that will be the the talk at the summit tomorrow summit. So that would be basically what to expect tomorrow. But the meat
Thank you,
of the
Ashish.
entire summit is here.
Thank you.
Thank
It
you.
was a
Thank you.
pleasure talking to you.